Alrighty, everybody. What's going on, guys? Welcome, welcome. Good to see y'all here for another update here this morning. We're getting ready to get on into it here. Just give a second for people to join. But what's up, everybody? Hope everyone's having a fantastic Wednesday morning. We got some new updates for y'all on the tropics here. Got some new information and new cones, new models, all kinds of new info for y'all. But what's up, everybody? Let's see who we got here so far. We have Hockey. What's up, Hockey? What's up, Tabletop? What's up, Spear? Good to see you guys. Of course, everybody else who is here not chatting. Hope y'all are doing good as well. What's up, Cassandra? Good to see ya. Hope you're doing good. But anyways, folks, well, like I said, we have some new updates for y'all. It looks like we do have some warnings being issued just outside of areas of land. This is out in the waters. Got some tropical storm warnings, hurricane warnings. What's this about here? Significant wave heights, which average height of 1/3 of the waves, individual, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Yeah, so we just got a couple of warnings out here, but this is not for the areas of land. So the cone's actually shifted a bit to the north here since yesterday, since we did our evening update for you guys. The cone has shifted out of the islands, which is good. However, these areas out by Lake Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands and stuff like that could definitely still see some indirect impacts in terms of like like swelling and coastal concerns and everything like that. Good morning, Ghosted. Good to see ya. What's up, Cole? Good morning, SPC. Cassandra said I had an early morning. Gotcha. I woke up at around 8 o'clock in the morning here, so. Tabletop too far out, man. First day of school. Oh, that's always fun. Absolutely. But anyways, folks. But yeah, so like I said, the cone's actually shifted a bit to the north here. Still Category 3 on the track. Now, by the time we approached the morning of the 18th, which I believe that's Sunday, or is that Monday? Yep, that's Monday. Okay. So once we hit Monday, look at this. Currently, the Hurricane Center does have this system a Category 3, becoming a Category 3. This weekend, going Sunday into Monday here. But yeah, on Monday's forecast here, as of right now from the Hurricane Center, on the 18th at 8 a.m. So Monday morning. System is expected to be a Category 3 with 120 mile per hour sustained winds gusting up to 150 miles per hour. So it's going to be packing quite a bit of a punch at this point. We were looking at the models and all that stuff yesterday, and we were talking about how basically the environment out here is going to be very conducive for rapid development. Once this storm here really rolls into, these waters out here, this is where it's really going to start to pick up some strength, And the reason behind it is because of how warm the waters are, for one. There's not much wind shear acting against the storm either, and also there's enough moisture to keep things really going. Here is the sea surface temperatures, and, you can see once we get out here in the waters, just how warm they really are. I mean, 29, 30 degrees Celsius waters, very, very, very warm. So it is definitely going to be working its way into a lot warmer of waters. Now, currently, regarding where it's at now, it's already starting to roll into some of those warmer waters here. We're kind of right around 26, 27 degrees Celsius. Currently, in regards to the waters below the storm right now. So, I mean, that is enough. That is enough. Typically you want above 26 degrees Celsius waters for tropical sustainability and strengthening. But, we are definitely starting to work our way into some of those warmer waters. Now, let's go ahead and take a peek at the satellite here. Yesterday, it was starting to get its act back together. Obviously, we had, we had ourselves a little bit of a struggle there for a bit. Okay, so it looks like we do have some convection going on here. This is actually the first time I've looked at it here this morning. I wanted to do everything with y'all. But yeah, let's look at the, we'll go ahead and play this in loop here, and we'll go ahead and get that view going. Whenever it decides it wants to load. Let's see, I woke up at 5:30. Yeah. That is too early, my friend. That is way, way too early. Why is this thing being slow? Here, let me refresh the page real quickly. It's being a little bit slow, unfortunately. There's probably so many. Why am I so bright? Oh my gosh. There's probably so many people trying to access this right now because they're all just wondering what's going on with it. Let's see. I didn't expect a hurricane warning issue today. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, but we got to remember, this is out of the waters, or sorry, in the waters. This is not for any area of land. This is just for the waters out there, just alerting the boaters and stuff that there's, some hazardous conditions and all that stuff going on here. So there we go. There's the view. We'll go ahead and load up the infrared view and see. But yeah, I mean, you can tell just from the still image here that we do have a pretty good amount of convection that's popping through, towards the southern central side of the storm here. It's definitely trying to pick up again. You can see that circulation is well defined at this point. It was pretty convectionless yesterday as it did run into some drier air, as well as it did roll through those cooler waters. But now, like I said, since we're starting to roll into a better atmosphere, more moisture in the atmosphere, as well as warmer waters here. This will allow for the system to really start picking up some strength here. Now, in the forecast track here, as we approach later on this evening, right around 8 p.m. Eastern time, the storm is expected to strengthen upwards of right around 50 miles an hour, nearly 52. At that point in time, we'll probably be gusting upwards of 63. It shows here, and then of course by tomorrow morning, oh wow, look at that. A little bit of strengthening expected, kind of upwards towards 60 miles an hour roughly, and gusting up to right around 70. And so we're not expecting the transition to occur until we approach basically until we approach the morning of the 15th, which that I believe is going to be Friday. Yeah, so Friday morning, that's when we're going to likely see, I mean, it could even happen as early as late Thursday. Late Thursday, early Friday, we are going to be seeing that transition from a tropical storm into a hurricane here. And then from that point on, we're going to see quite, pretty quickly start to see the system really start picking up some strength here. Expected to reach Category 2 status here for the morning of the 16th, which that would be on Saturday. So literally becoming a hurricane on Friday, to a Category 2 on Saturday at the same time. So within 24 hours, it becomes a hurricane. It'll be Category 2 here for the morning of the 16th, which is the Saturday commute. And then, of course, in the current cone, we are expecting the storm here to roll just north of, the Virgin Islands, just north of Puerto Rico and, the Antilles out here. So it'll be north of you guys. You can see the cone at this point no longer includes those islands here, so that's certainly good. But yeah, I mean, by the time we approach the weekend, though, I mean, this thing is expected to become a major hurricane, Category 3 hurricane here. You can see this is expected on the morning of the 17th, which that would be on Sunday. There on Sunday. So, and right around there for the morning of Sunday, storm will be clocking in right around 115 sustained, gusting up towards 140 miles an hour. And then, of course, we continue working our way to the northwest here, where, we do have some more strengthening expected. Honestly, like I mentioned, I would not be surprised if we really see some quick strengthening with the storm once we approach these waters out here. Because, like I've mentioned, the waters are very, very, very warm out here, for one. And two, there's not much wind shear acting against the storm either. The forecast, as well as, there's plenty enough moisture to keep things going. So that's that. That's kind of what we're looking at there. But yeah, by the time we approach the morning of Monday, you can see Hurricane Center does have Cat 3, top winds here sustained right around 120 miles an hour, and gusting upwards of 150 or so. Let's see. Yeah, so still, guys, currently there is no, there's no danger for the United States right now, really anywhere else. As of right now, you can see the cone mostly keeps this thing well away from areas of land. One thing I will mention at this point is that don't be surprised if there's some rough seas out here, for some of these islands, including like Puerto Rico, because this system, a system like this can really move around some water. That's the thing. These systems can really, really move around some water. Even if they're far off coast, they can cause some pretty big waves and stuff like that. That could also lead to some rip current concerns. So if you're on the beach here, I would advise against getting in the water at least too deep. But yeah, I mean, obviously that is also a concern that we will definitely need to be looking out there for. But yeah, on the current forecast cone here, obviously just gradual northwesterly movement, over the next several days. And, once again, like I've mentioned a lot yesterday, guys, the further you look, the further you look out here, the more inaccurate things do tend to get, in which we do, anything beyond the cone here is just too far out. It is too early to tell, okay? So, but yeah, so anything beyond this is unknown. So, for my folks who's wondering what's going to go on after this, we do not know because it's too early. The most that we do know is what's currently indicated in the cone here. So anything beyond this point is too early to tell. So we don't know if this thing is going to be a problem for the U.S. or not, but the best that we can do now is just watch it and, keep an eye on it. Let's see. It looks like it's moving south out of the cone. What, the storm? Well, central circulation is like right in here. The convection looks like it's moving out of the cone, but the convection's more to the southern side of the cell. Or, sorry, not the cell. The storm itself. Circulation's like right in here. I know it's kind of hard to see, but you got to really look at it closely. Now, the circulation's within the cone, and, that's exactly what the cone is there for, showing you where the center of the storm could ultimately track into. Once again, a big misconception here is that a lot of people think that this is where the storm effects are going to be felt. That is not true. Storm effects can be felt well outside of the cone. So keep that in mind. The cone is just there to show you, where the center or, the eye of the storm could ultimately end up here. So it's the cone of uncertainty because, the center of the storm could end up anywhere in the cone. For example, it could go pretty far to the south or it could go pretty far to the north. But generally speaking, we're expecting it to remain within this boundary here. We're not really expecting it to go outside of this boundary, if that makes sense. So that's what the cone is really there for. Let's see here. Great coverage. Happy Wednesday. I appreciate it, my friend. You as well. Good to see you. Let's see. Cole says, I wonder what the cruise industry is doing to prepare for Erin. Well, a lot of them know to go around the storms. So, but yeah, there definitely could be some delays and stuff going some places. Would not be surprised. But anyways, so that's that. So let's go and hop away into models, y'all. We're going to first of all take a peek here at the Hurricane Spaghetti models. We're going to see what's going on here. So here's the Spaghetti models. Obviously, at the end of the forecast, we have a really, really big, aggressive turn to the north here. It seems more likely, that is a good possibility of what the storm could do here. Ghosted, coming in with a $2 super chat, saying thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you for the support, my friend. That's really nice of you. Huge shout out goes to you, Ghosted. Thank you for the support, my friend. That's really, really sweet of you. Thank you. But yeah, so like I mentioned, though, I mean, we do have some pretty close quarters here over the next several days between these spaghetti models here. I mean, we have a couple of them that go a little bit further north, but majority of them are pretty packed tight together. That is showing that there is some agreement and showing that there is some support between the models here. And as we work our way over here in the next several days, so 72 hours, that is 3 days from now, 96 hours, then 120, 144. So there's Bermuda. I don't know if you guys noticed, but there's Bermuda right there. I do need Bermuda to watch the storm here. You folks out there really do need to be monitoring the storm. There's currently no immediate danger for Bermuda, but given models and stuff like that, it is certainly something that we should watch. And so Bermuda, I do need you guys to be aware and just keeping a close eye on the weather. But right now, there's no immediate danger for really anybody with this storm here. That could change in the future, and we're going to stay tuned for that. But, right now, I want you guys to know that there's currently no immediate danger for anybody in the United States. No danger currently. Same thing for Bermuda. There's no immediate danger for you guys. But, given the way that the storm is looking here, I would consider, at least just really keeping an eye on this storm pretty closely. Things can evolve pretty quickly with tropical cyclones. And so things can really shift quite quickly, So you got to really just keep an eye on every update here. But yeah, I mean, they're towards the end of the spaghetti models. You can see, the gradual northwesterly movement that we have over the next several days. But then, as we kind of approach the weekend into early next week, that's when we're going to probably really start to kind of pull to the north here. It is a good possibility. But remember, still nothing's final. I've seen models, they've flip-flopped quite a bit a few times here for this system. I've seen them go a little further west, a little bit further south, and then back up north again. So, they're still kind of wobbling a little bit right now. So, but yeah, so that's the current spaghetti models here. Now, looking at the intensity guidance here, so the same models just plotted for intensity here on the graph here. You can see that, the green is tropical storm force, category 1 here in the yellow, cat 2 orange, cat 3 red, and of course cat 4 the pink color. There's quite a bit of spread here, in regarding to the strength of what the storm will be doing. I mean, you can see that there is quite a big spread here. So there's obviously a bit of disagreement going on, with how strong this storm is going to be. But if we kind of take roughly that median point, a lot of the models have this thing just, still gradually strengthening here, in which, there's obviously at this point pretty much no doubt that this thing will become a hurricane at some point. It looks like most of the models kind of suggest that within the next 3 or so days, which does kind of make sense here. And then, like I mentioned, beyond this point here, still models continue to climb. We still do continue to see, a lot of, growing support here of the system becoming even stronger. And shoot, I mean, there is quite a few models that, does suggest this thing getting into category 3 plus, that range there. So, that is, a very good possibility. And once again, I mean, the Hurricane Center already has that there. So, there's definitely a good potential that this thing could, become a major hurricane by the weekend. And we're kind of expecting that to occur on Sunday. It looks like Sunday, that's kind of when we're probably going to see the system strengthen into a major hurricane here. So, anyway, so that's the intensity guidance here from the hurricane models. Now, here's some more model data here. This is the the GEFS model ensembles. And obviously you can see a lot of them do want this thing to go out to sea, which, would be a better scenario for the United States. Obviously let's hope that happens. But remember, still some things can change. I really wouldn't look too much further beyond this point here because, at that point things are really starting to get kind of spread out and there's a lot of uncertainty that starts growing here. But a good chunk of the ensembles really do want this thing to kind of pull out to sea, which is a good possibility. While that'll be a good thing for the United States, keeping it away mostly from the United States potentially. Once again, United States still we cannot rule out any potential impacts right now, but this would be a good scenario if it did for the United States. However, this would put areas out by Bermuda in more of a danger. So right now we just need you guys to the focus on just monitoring the storm here across still the United States East Coast. Of course, we still need you guys to not let your guard down. We still need to be actively weather aware. Across the U.S. East Coast. Same thing for some of these islands out here in the in the Caribbean, as well as of course Bermuda as well. We definitely do need to keep an eye out there for that. So that's some more ensembles. That's the GFS or the GEFS ensembles here. Then lastly, we have the GEPS ensembles. This one's kind of all over the place, as you can kind of tell. Yeah, a pretty big spread. I mean, one of the members goes pretty far to the west here. And a lot of the members are just really kind of all over the place, as you can see. So there's a lot of uncertainty there with that. So, at this point in time, the probability of this storm going out to sea appears to be more and more possible. But like I've mentioned before, y'all, beyond the cone, we cannot look any further than that because of how much things can change and how uncertain things are. I mean, it might look like it now that it's going to go out to sea. I mean, which it's definitely a good possibility, but like I've mentioned, though, it's, things can still easily change. They might look like one thing during one run, and then the next run it could look totally different, which I've seen that happen a lot when forecasting. I mean, I've been doing this for several years. I mean, I've probably been forecasting hurricanes for a good 8-9 years or so. I mean, and I've seen it so many times, where the models, look like they're going to do one thing, people make assumptions, and then it ends up changing last minute. It can happen, and that's why we never need to let our guard down. So right now, like I said, the best thing for everybody to do, there's no need for panic, no need for full-on preparations or anything like that right now. Obviously, be prepared for hurricane season. Just make sure you have everything together. But, for this in particular system, there's no need to go out and rush and buy, the whole store or anything like that. That's not needed right now. But yeah, so across the East Coast, just monitor it. We'll keep an eye on it. Same thing for Bermuda, obviously. Just monitor Bermuda if you're out there. If you know anybody out there, give them a heads up. We just need to watch it. But yeah, right now, currently is, not any immediate danger for any area of land. But remember, that could change with time. So we're definitely just going to have to continue watching it. So anyways, but there's a system now. Right now, actually, we've actually slowed down a bit. In the top left, you can see there, it's moving west at 17 miles an hour. We were actually at 21 miles an hour yesterday evening during the update that we did have. So the storm's actually slowed down a little bit in terms of movement. Still clocking it at 45 sustained. Nothing's really changed there. Pressure pretty much the same as well at 1,004 millibars. I think yesterday morning it was 1,006, and then yesterday evening it was 1,004, and now it's 1,004 still. So not much of a change in pressure. But visually looking at this storm, it does look a little bit more healthier than it did yesterday. Yesterday it was starting to encounter a little bit of drier air, as well as it was, also kind of interacting with the cooler waters. But now, thankfully, well, for the storm's sake anyways, the storm has worked its way into warmer waters here overall. So that should allow for the storm to really possibly pick up in some activity. But, we're not expecting any rapid intensification, at least for the next few days. I mean, this thing's likely just going to remain a tropical storm for, once again, the next several days. That is a good possibility. But, I mean, anything, or basically once we go beyond that point into the weekend and we approach the northern Caribbean, that is where things could really start to rapidly strengthen, because the conditions out there in these waters, which, the storm eventually will head into, is very, very conducive for, potential rapid development. Once again, we do have really, really warm sea surface temperatures out there, about 29 degrees Celsius, which is super, super warm for tropical activity, as well as the moisture content. We have a pretty good amount of water vapor, pretty good amount of moisture in the atmosphere, at this point in time in the forecast track, which we'll look at in the models here in a minute. And then, of course, in terms of wind shear, in the forecast, it doesn't really show much winds acting against the system. If you don't know what wind shear is, it's simply just winds throughout different layers of the atmosphere moving at certain speeds, in which wind shear can be a big problem for tropical cyclones. It does not seem to be a problem for this one. But basically what wind shear does is you have a well-y structured hurricane or tropical cyclone. These systems are very much vertically stacked. They are very, very vertically stacked, in which, if you get some strong winds pushing against the storm, it can cause the storm to kind of choke itself and allow for it to destabilize and weaken. That, however, doesn't really seem to be a problem, at least as of right now, overall. So we'll have to see, though. We'll have to continue watching that. But, yeah, I really do think once we get into these waters, we'll really start to see some rapid strengthening here with this system here. Let's see here. Ponderosa says, hopefully it'll stay out to sea. Yeah, I hope so. That is for sure. Let's see here. Can I show the water temperatures? Yeah. 26 degrees, 26 degrees Celsius waters, which, is warm enough for sustainability and, some slight strengthening. So, yeah, there's the Cabo Verde. The storm is, pretty much in these waters right here, a good 26 degrees Celsius or whatnot. But, on the forecast track, as this thing continues working its way, to the west, slightly northwest here, you can see that the waters is going to be heading into is a lot warmer. Definitely is a lot warmer, out there just north of, Puerto Rico. Once the storm does get out here, I mean, those waters are going to be 29, even towards 30 degrees Celsius out there, which that's certainly pretty warm. There's Bermuda too. The waters out by Bermuda are also very, very warm too. About 29 degrees Celsius. So, definitely is pretty warm across these waters here. So we're just gonna have to keep an eye out there for that. There overall. Let's see here. Mic cutting out. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with it. But anyways, but yeah, so that's what the waters look like. The Gulf is super, super, super warm out there. All right, so let's go and hop into models, y'all. We're gonna take a look here over at the models individually here. So let's go ahead and get on into that here. So we're gonna look at the HWRF here to start things off. So this is one of the main hurricane models, the HWRF. So if y'all want to follow in the time, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna actually bring it up here so you guys can see. Do I have the time shown? I do not. Here, you're about to see something pretty funky here in a second. Hold on a minute, y'all. So we're gonna do some trippy stuff here, and we're gonna move it up so you guys, at least I can show you guys where the timing is, you know, on the system and everything like that. So let's do that. Here you go. So there's the time, and I'm gonna put that in the top left. We'll put it right there. Perfect. So yeah, if you want to follow along in the time, y'all, it is in the top left here. So anyways, we work our way down in time for the next few days, and you can see that, you know, some slow strengthening is definitely possible here by the 14th tomorrow in the afternoon. You know, probably going to start to dip down into the 990s according to this model here. You know, once we approach the 15th and beyond, you can see that's where we really start picking up that strength here overall. So, you know, that's something that we're, you know, really just going to have to look out there for. But anyways, yeah, so we continue working further down in time here, and, you know, the model here just has continuous strengthening occurring here. And of course, you know, out there by the, and of course out here by, you know, the islands up there by the Virgin Islands and everything like that. You know, the storm does stay relatively just to the north here. You know, it does stay just relatively to the north. And, you know, in the far extended part of the model here, you know, about 126 hours out, you can see, according to the HWRF here, I mean, we do get pretty low. You know, the model here in the latest run showing 945 millibars here for the 18th. So definitely is quite a beast. And there's the moisture, you know, we were talking about here, you know, across the blue, you know, bluish green area. This is the amount of moisture we have. You know, it doesn't really look like it's going to be lacking in much of that department here. It looks like it's, you know, going to continue to, you know, it looks like it is going to continue to hold a pretty good amount of moisture here overall, which, you know, that's a little bit concerning, you know, given that it is rolling into those really warm waters. It contains a lot of moisture as well. The wind shear doesn't really seem to be much of a concern either here with this system. So, you know, that is that. But so yeah, so that's the HWRF. Now here's the infrared view. You guys can see. You know, looking at the infrared, you can see the system just passes mostly north of the islands out here. Looking at the here, let's see if I can pull up the lower dynamics. We're going to look at the lower level winds. You can see that, you know, those aggressive winds are probably going to be pretty far away from the islands here, according to the HWRF model. A lot of that just kind of remaining well away from land. But, you know, like I mentioned, though, there could definitely be a problem, you know, with the waves. You know, that's another issue, is that, you know, there definitely could be some pretty big waves that could occur, you know, for those islands, even though they're directly not getting impacted. So definitely some coastal concerns could be quite an issue here. But, I mean, yeah, there towards the end of the HWRF run, I mean, you could see the system really develops a pretty nice eye there. And it does grow in size as well. You know, it also, as it strengthens, it does grow its, you know, size quite a bit as well. So, you know, could definitely be quite a nasty looking storm there at some point. So here, yeah, here's the parent model. Here's a little bit more of a zoomed out version you guys can kind of see here. But you can see mostly it does mostly just kind of barely miss the Virgin Islands and, you know, those regions out there just north of Puerto Rico. So that's on the current forecast, is that it should remain just north of those areas there. So now let's go ahead and take a look here over at, does it show the wind shear? It sure does. Yeah, so looking at those, looking at the wind shear, you can see that we do have some of that upper level venting going on here, but not really a whole lot of, you know, wind shear issues for the storm. I mean, yeah, it really doesn't run into much, wind shear concern from what it looks like according to the HWRF model, which a lot of models actually show. is that it's probably not going to be running into a lot of wind shear. So, given that the storm here is going to be in pretty much a low to shearless environment, on top of those sea surface temperatures being 29 degrees Celsius and warmer, as well as the amount of moisture that's still available, there's still going to be enough moisture to keep things going. So that's why I'm a little bit concerned, with potential for rapid strengthening, once we get out into those waters, because that's where it's going to have like the best potential to really grow. Now, you can see that clockwise upper level venting that we have for the system. This is typical with tropical cyclones. Once they pick up a lot of strength, they do vent, because all the air that goes in needs to go out. That's just basically the clockwise venting, which, that's actually a little bit of a fun fact for you guys. The lower part of the storm rotates counterclockwise, and then the upper part of the storm rotates clockwise. It's basically the venting process of a tropical cyclone, which is certainly pretty cool. Anyways, let's see. Weston says NHC sees that southern shift possible since the big hurricane. Well, no. So they put those warnings there basically just to warn the boaters. Basically just saying that, hey, the waters are going to be quite aggressive out here. Just alerting people, giving them a heads up in the future. But, this goes well out of the cone. To be honest, I don't know why they made it so big. I think it's just the basin of water, the size it is. They can't... Here, let me go ahead and show you guys what I'm looking at here. That would probably help a little bit. So you can see the warnings that they've added here. And so, this is, they just select it. It's a pre-selected area. They cannot select specific parts of it. It's just a big grid system. And so that they saw that the system is rolling into these areas of the grid. So they just select the whole grid. And that's why those warnings apply for even outside of the cone. I mean, these areas out here will probably not see hurricane conditions. They'll probably see some strong waves, but it's just a part of how these warnings are, for those big bodies of water. They're just a big grid system. Anyways, enough of that. Let's see here. But yeah, so that's that. That's why we have that warning in place here. Just basically alerting the boaters out there, hey, there's a hurricane getting ready to come by, so just keep an eye on it. But yeah, hopping back to models here. So that's the HWRF that we looked at here. We'll definitely keep a really close eye on it. Once again, looking at the moisture. It seems like moisture isn't going to be too much of an issue. I mean, you can see it definitely holds enough of the moisture. Let's grab a little sounding there. Oh, never mind. I guess we won't. So let's go and hop over here to the HMON. We'll see what the HMON model suggests here. So HMON actually has a little bit of dry air getting to it, between like tomorrow, the 14th, which could, stall a little bit of rapid development here, but you can see eventually it gets a hold of a lot of moisture, and then it starts really picking up in strength on the 15th. That's actually been the common denominator here, y'all, with the models, is that it looks like we're going to really start picking up strength on the 15th. So day after tomorrow on Friday. It looks like the Friday commute, that's when we're going to really start picking up the strength here. As it really wraps in that moisture, as it really, rolls into those really warm waters, and of course, not much wind shear kind of disrupting any of that to occur, any of that organization there. But anyways, so that's when we're expecting this thing to really start popping off here. It's going to be on Friday. You can see that according to the HMON, there could be some points in which we do run into some dry air. You can see particularly at 8 a.m. on the 17th here, that there could be a bit of dry air on the left-hand side of the model, while a lot of the right stays relatively saturated. The left here stays pretty dry. That is what's depicted from this model. Like looking at the HWRF for this run, you can see that that's totally different. The HWRF has that western side a lot more saturated. So, can't really take that super seriously because there's obviously a bit of disagreement there. There is a lot of, unknowns with that. And that just really goes to show you that even, in that short of range, 100 hours out or so, there still is a lot of uncertainty, with that system. So that's just something that you do need to, keep an eye out there for. But yeah, hopping over here to the HAFS-A. We're going to look at the parent model here so we can zoom out quite a bit here. So Kind of the same thing according to the HFSA. Just some slow development over the next 2 days or so. Not a whole lot of anything crazy, but once we hit the 15th, you can see that's where the pressure really starts to drop here. There you go. There's the 15th. You can see the pressure really starts dropping. Likely becoming a hurricane on the 15th here. And as it continues working to the west, it really starts wrapping in a lot of moisture here. And once it kind of passes just north of the islands out there, it really starts to pick up quite a bit of strength here. I mean, at the end of the run here from the HFSA model, you can see here for the morning of the 18th, which I think that's Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken. No, that's Monday. Sorry. So, yeah, once we hit Monday, you can see at that point the HFSA shows a lot of moisture. Here. So that's a little concerning. Looking at the wind shear, you can see there's just a lot of upper level venting going on here. Unfortunately, they won't let me pull a sounding here, but you can see that we do have that clockwise venting going on here. That's not an individual jet that's hitting the storm. That's actually associated from the storm. So that's not going to be too much of a concern. And so plenty of moisture, not much wind shear acting against the storm here. And of course, the waters, once again, you can see those sea surface temperatures here are good 29 degrees Celsius, which that's certainly some pretty warm waters there, especially for tropical development. 29 degrees Celsius waters is certainly a little bit toasty here overall. So anyways, let's see, pretty sure boaters would be aware to storms during hurricane season. Oh, yeah, absolutely. They kind of got to be. Go look at the spaghetti models. We will in a minute when we get done with the main models here. But we did look at it earlier. Yeah, I see you guys in chat asking about that. Yeah, we did. But yeah, we'll get into it more in a minute, okay? I just want to kind of show y'all what's going on individually here so we can kind of show y'all the common denominators and stuff. But anyways, so that's the HFSA. Plenty of moisture, not much wind shear, warm waters, obviously. So there's that. Now, hopping our way over here into the HFSB model, we have the parent here. So this one, really not much different from what it looks like here. I mean, you can see the time top left there, right here for today, the 13th, as we work our way down in time. Not a whole lot of crazy development with it. We're just going to kind of be stalling for a day or so. You can see maybe a little bit of dry air getting into the storm here, but, it's kind of not really anything super crazy. But eventually, once we approach the 15th here, which you can see, that's when we really start wrapping in a lot of moisture. And that's really when the system starts to get a hold of itself. So once again, just remember that on the 15th or on Friday, that is where we're going to really start to see the system starting to, really get a hold of itself here. And as we work our way throughout the 16th going into the 17th here, you can see that, continuous rapid development here. The HAFSB model here, kind of shows a relative similar thing to the HFSA, showing, a plentiful amount of moisture in the atmosphere. Those sea surface temperatures, 29 degrees Celsius. And of course, our wind shear here, just some strong upper level venting going on. But that's really about it. There's not a whole lot of, anything. Really much different with the HFSB model. So, that's what I'm mostly concerned about, and I really think that is where the biggest concern is going to be with this system, is that I think it has a good potential at rapidly developing. I would, knock on wood, hopefully this doesn't happen or anything like that. This is just what I think is possible. Can't be ruled out. I would not be surprised if it potentially could get above Cat 3. Now, currently, Hurricane Center has it as Cat 3, and that's what we should go off of. But, just given that the environment that it's heading into, I wouldn't be surprised if it had the potential of going higher. So we'll just have to see, because those waters out there are going to be a pool of rapid development potential. So we'll just have to look out for that. Let's see here. Hey, is there another one behind this? And see, that's the news. What to say? Or that is what the news is saying. So the Hurricane Center right now does not have any disturbances on it. Obviously, the the news loves to hype things up quite a bit. But I'm here to tell you, look at this. So here's the Hurricane Center's page. Actually, I'm just gonna bring you all over here. It'll make it a little bit easier. There you go. So this is the Hurricane Center page. You can see that there is no system, no disturbance behind Erin. We do have another storm system that we're watching here. Not anything has really changed with it since yesterday. This is a disturbance here in the southern Gulf. Low working its way over the Yucatan Peninsula here soon. Has a little chance of development. Overall 7 days, 20% chance of becoming a depression. Pretty low odds. As well as throughout the next 48 hours, a 10% chance. So, yeah, more than likely it's not going to really do much of anything. So I'm not really worried about Disturbance 1 too much. We do have this guy, Disturbance 2, about to fade out. It'll probably be gone next update. They have a 0% chance, a near 0% chance of development here. Yeah, this guy isn't going to do much. Yeah, the main concern right now is Erin going on. And, obviously we'll keep an eye on Disturbance 1 too. But at most, it's probably not going to be anything more than just a bunch of thunderstorms. So that's I'm not really worried about it. No, I'm not. But anyways, hopping back to models though. I mean, we're gonna take a look at the GFS now. We're gonna zoom out a little bit here. So we're gonna take a peek here. We're gonna switch on back to the North Atlantic here. Let me correct my timing thing real quickly. I need to change this up a little bit because it's a little bit off, as you can tell. There we go. So we'll put that in the top left there again. Perfect. Okay, so looking at the GFS here, actually we have a new run coming through. This is the 12 UTC, so we're going to hop back because that one's not done rendering yet. So here is the 06 UTC GFS run. You can see, GFS does have gradual strengthening as we work our way to the west here overall. Once we approach just north of Puerto Rico, you can see the system could really start picking up some strength here. Now, the GFS has this thing kind of going out by Bermuda. This is 180 hours out, so there certainly could be some, changes, in things. Remember, this is also one model. This is one model run. We cannot trust this precisely. But things can change at this point in hour. But the latest GFS does have it getting really close to Bermuda, actually going over Bermuda, which, once again, Bermuda, it's not guaranteed that you guys are going to 100% get impacted, but what I do want you to do, if you're out in Bermuda, just monitor it closely. Keep an eye on the weather. That's the same thing for the U.S. East Coast. There's currently no danger, no imminent danger for the United States or Bermuda, but, those areas do need to heavily watch it, as in the future that could change, okay? Anyways. But yeah, definitely do need to watch out for Bermuda. We do have that high, the Bermuda high here does kind of shift its way eastward. Could open the gate here for, the storm to kind of slip through, that basically slip through, but, on the left-hand side of that high pressure here that we have. So that could steer it to the north. And, a lot of models have actually been picking up on that for quite a bit. So we'll just have to see what happens there. Obviously, anything beyond this is just too far out, so we can't look anything further than that, really. So that's GFS here. Looking at Euro, this is the ECMWF. This is the 06 UTC run here. This is the latest full run we got. So looking at the Euro, not a whole lot of strengthening going on over the next few days. Just, sustainability, a little bit of slow development is possible over the next, 2 or so days. But once we hit Friday, that's when things could really start to pick up here. Yeah, Euro does have the system, really strengthening pretty quickly once we approach, those waters, in the Caribbean here just north of Puerto Rico. The conditions out there are very conducive for rapid development. Once again, like I've mentioned before, really, really warm sea surface temperatures, not much wind shear interaction with the storm, not really disrupting, the system's structure or anything like that. And there's enough moisture. I mean, looking at the moisture content here, you can see that, that we still do have a pretty good amount of moisture. That greenish blue color represents high humidity, high amounts of moisture in the atmosphere here, while the brown kind of represents more drier conditions. So, it doesn't really look like that's going to be too much of a concern, with dry air, at least, once we approach these waters here. But yeah, no, Euro, though, we can't look any further than this, but, Euro at the end of the forecast run, it does have it, pulling to the north quite a little bit. Like I said, anything beyond this is a little bit unknown. Now, I will tell you this here. The previous model, or I should say comparing the model from Euro here to the GFS, you can see that there is quite a bit of a difference here, ultimately in where the storm could end up here. So let's go ahead and give that a second to load here. There's a lot of people that's loading this page here, so it's sometimes taking a little bit. But yeah, you can see that the GFS model has this system going a lot further north. And if we take a look here at the ECMWF, you can see that the Euro has the system a lot further west. So we're going to have to look out for changes like that. As you know, once again, things are still evolving. You know, we cannot completely rule out this thing going even further west. You know, it's still not 100% for sure. But we'll keep it on it. We'll definitely watch it really, really closely. Let's see here. Alrighty. See, sounds fun. I could go for a thunderstorm. Yeah, me too. That'd be pretty nice. Yeah, we had a pretty good one yesterday. I tell you what, though. Getting a little bit off topic for a second, I do want to show you guys this. Dude, I got quite the shot yesterday of lightning. I'm going to share this with y'all. This is out my window. It's kind of hard to see. Oh, you see tropical tidbits in the background. Okay, well, it's kind of hard to see, but dude, it was pretty crazy last night. Anyways, moving on. But yeah, so that's the Euro. Let's hop over here to the CMC. Let's see what the CMC model suggests here. So this is the 0 UTC run here. Hopefully we'll get the 12 UTC soon. But CMC, though, you know, has the system, you know, working its way to the west here. And you can actually see, you know, just shy to the north of the Virgin Islands out there by Puerto Rico as well, as it works its way, you know, to the north. It kind of agrees with the GFS here. CMC also shows another wave, as you can see. This is about 144 hours out, which is a little bit far, but it does show another low going over the Cabo Verde right around the 19th, which that's about, what, 6 days from now, roughly. 5.5 days or so. But it does show that system, you know, maybe another wave to follow. We'll just have to see. But, you know, regarding the CMC model, though, it does have that northerly pull like the GFS does. So that does seem pretty common between the models here, is that, you know, the system will possibly work its way up to the north here. Remember, things can still change, of course. You know, we are still several days out. I mean, the storm's over here in these waters right now, and it's got a long way to go. So there is a lot of things that can absolutely change here. But so that's that. CMC, there is no moisture, but we can look at the wind shear here. You know, nothing really more than that upper level venting going on. You know, there's not a whole lot of wind shear acting against the storm. You know, if we had a strong jet like this going at the storm, that would be a problem, you know, for the storm. But, you know, it doesn't really seem like wind shear is going to be too much of an issue, at least within the next several days here. It should be pretty minimal overall. Then, of course, in terms, lastly, of the Icon, this is the 12 UTC run here from Icon. You know, Icon does have this thing gradually strengthening. Wow. Holy cow. Talk about an aggressive run. Sheesh. 919 millibars. Okay, well, obviously, that's a very aggressive run. That is an unlikely scenario as of right now. But, anyways, Icon does show the system a bit further to the west here. You know, there's Bermuda. GFS had it going right over Bermuda. CMC kind of agreed. And Icon, you can see, kind of agrees with the Euro a bit in terms of it going a lot further west. So, you know, we're going to have to see what happens with that. You know, that just goes to show you that there still is obviously a bit of, you know, disagreement and all that stuff. But, you know, we'll just have to see. We'll just have to see what happens there. So that's just kind of a breakdown between the main models here. So we'll definitely just monitor it. But, yeah, you know, there's going to be people that's going to be posting the last hour to try to get a rise out of people. Just know anything beyond 150 hours out is not really reliable, in which definitely need you guys to look out for that. You know, if you see forecast hour above 150 or so, it's usually not super, you know, not really super reliable. Unless there's, like, a lot of agreement. You know, it kind of depends. But anyways, so that's that, y'all. You know, also Icon does support that other low working its way off of Africa. Let's see, does GFS suggest that? Let's go to 06 UTC here. Okay, so GFS does have another low rolling off the west coast of Africa. Let me bring up the ECENS ensembles here. I wonder if it pulls up anything on that. Let's see here. We'll do ECENS. Yeah, I'm really curious to see here if the ECENS does show anything here. So here we go. Here's ECENS. Actually, you know what? No, we're going to bring it over here. Why not? Perfect. Good enough. So let's look at the forecast hour. Let's do 240. Obviously, we're just going to throw everything there. So here's what the ECENS suggests here. Showing that system, yes, advancing its way out to sea. At this point in time, there's not a whole lot of guidance that shows it impacting the United States directly. Obviously, we cannot rule that out, but as of right now, it seems less likely. So whenever it comes to it, there is a little bit more support, of that low, but it's very iffy. It's very much all over the place here. Anyways. Let's see here. Moderate says, can I explain how these different models are forecasted? Is it AI who determines the actual professionals? And how do they do it? So basically, you have multiple different models, right? So you have like the GFS, you have the Euro, Icon, CMC, just a whole bunch of different models. There's dozens and dozens of models. Now, these are ran from supercomputers. Basically, we input simple, or not really simple, but we input equations and calculations of thermodynamics, kinematics. All of these equations get put into this computer, and then what we do is we take current observations, like mesonet data, satellite imagery, radar data, all this stuff. We also throw it in this model, and basically it takes the current conditions, it takes the laws of physics, progresses it in the future based off of, how things usually flow, thermodynamically, whatever. And it creates a time series in which, progresses things in the future. Now, because the further you go out, the more uncertainty there is because, say if there's one little thing that's off 1 hour, the next hour is going to amplify that even more, if that makes any sense. I might not be the best at explaining this, but that's kind of simply how these models work. It's just a big supercomputer that processes current atmospheric data as well as takes the laws of physics, thermodynamics, puts it all into a computer, progresses it on a time series in the future. And there's a lot of different models that have different equations. So they're all not the same. Some models are used for different things. Some of the models are higher resolution than others. Like the GFS is a lower resolution, big range model that covers the entire world. Then you have other models, which this isn't really related to the tropics, but you have other models like the RAP or the NAM that basically, is more of a higher resolution model, but it focuses on one area, if that makes sense. So that's basically how that works, yes. And then we take that model data. It's a tool that as forecasters use, and we look for things that agree. So, for example, we have multiple different model runs. We look at them. We look at what they agree on most, and what they usually agree on most is a good possibility that could actually occur. Does that make sense? So, just kind of the common denominator we really look for. Anyways, hopefully that helped. Captain, that would be interesting. Let's see here. Will the hurricane hunters go out even if they know it's not hitting the U.S.? Yeah, they'll always go out and investigate it. Not just for knowing where it will go, but also for research purposes. Absolutely. Brady, I am not surprised. I'm not surprised at all, unfortunately. A lot of people are hyping every little thing up just for clicks and views and money income, which is just ridiculous. I cannot stand those people, dude, who literally make up lies and clickbait just for views. They're basically just wanting to make money off of people's fears. It's ridiculous. And I am here to swear to you guys, I will never do that. It makes people like me look bad because there's actual people who are telling you the truth, like me, and trying to give you the actual information. And then you got people like that who give us a bad rep, which is annoying. I know I mentioned it a lot, but it's just ridiculous. It's been getting bad too. It's been getting worse and worse and worse, and I hate to say it. And before you know it, it's gonna be Boy Who Cried Wolf. Nobody's gonna know who to trust, and it's stupid. It bothers me. It's ridiculous. So not only are these people spreading misinformation and getting people all worked up, but they're getting paid to do it as well, and that really, really bothers me. It's ridiculous. But anyways, moving on from that. Moving on. Get a little sidetracked here. But anyways, yeah, so we're going to go live again tonight, though, y'all. We'll make sure to give you guys some more information on the tropics. Obviously, we're going to give you guys 2 updates per day, kind of a late morning, early afternoon update here, just to kind of show y'all what's going on in the early part of the day, and then we'll go live in the evening, of course. So we have another live stream scheduled today. I don't like to give a specific time in case something pops up, but I usually say between 8 and 10 p.m. So just make sure you have your notifications on, turn notifications on if you want to be alerted when we do go live. That way you guys will not miss it, and then you'll get that notification out there. Anyways, let's see here. Yeah, weather, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Let's see. Since the hurricane hunters are going out tomorrow, could there be a bigger change in the models since they have better data to use? It's possible. Yeah, and all the model that they collect will be plugged into those models that we talked about. So all the data we collect, dropson data, surface data, all flight level data, all this stuff will be plugged into the models. Specifically, like I was mentioning, there's different types of models. You got the HWRF, which that is a strict hurricane model that focuses on mostly hurricane activity. And so data like that will be plugged into those models, yes, to give it more, think of it as a power-up, essentially, to give it a little bit more better data, a little bit better of an idea of what could occur. So anyways, Ghosted says, you're awesome, Andrew. Thank you for all the updates. Yeah, of course. Of course, y'all. I want to make sure you guys are staying safe. Like I mentioned, y'all, I swear to you, I'll make sure to keep things legit here always. I'm never gonna change the way it is now. I'll just make sure to keep you guys updated. And, once again, anything beyond the cone, y'all, it's too early to tell. There could be a lot of changes between now and then. There is extended range guidance that shows it could go out to sea, but that's still not guaranteed. It's not. As we're probably going to be flip-flopping around here still like we have been for the last several days. It's still pretty far out. I mean, look, we got the whole North Atlantic here. I mean, the storm's right here. I mean, we got a long way to go. And you bet that there's a lot of, potential that things could change, between now and then. So we'll have to see. But at the current moment, it could definitely, could go out to sea. But remember, that's not final. So don't let your guard down. Still need everybody on the East Coast to monitor it. No reason to panic. No reason to, go out and buy everything on the shelves that you see. No, that's not needed. Same thing for Bermuda. Keep an eye on it. And if it does become an immediate danger, we will let you know. Okay? We will definitely let you know. Anyways, Cole says, sounds good. Thanks for giving us hype freight. Yeah, no problem. It'll always be like that, y'all. Binksy says, love it when we get geeky on these streams. Yeah. Yeah, me too. Sometimes it's good just to sit down and chat about things and all that. Yeah, it's important. It is. We in the beginning of the stream, we went over everything, and then now we're just sitting and having a serious talk about everything. It's good. It is good. But anyways, folks, if you guys have any questions, feel free to let me know. We're probably going to roll off soon. Typically we do about an hour update here. Per hour, we talk about things usually 2-3 times, and then we call it a stream, and then that way people can just go back and rewatch the stream if they missed it, so they can get some information on it. But yeah, no, like I mentioned, if y'all have any questions or anything like that, hey, please don't hesitate to ask, and we're here for you guys. We'll make sure to keep you guys weather aware, and we'll make sure to keep you guys up to date. But anyways, folks, well, I just want to say thank you all for joining. I appreciate it. If you're new to the channel, I'm not going to hold you to it, but consider subscribing. If you guys haven't already, leave a like too. It'll help out a bunch. Help out, get YouTube familiar with our channel, which could definitely, in turn, help out more people in the future. That is what we are here for, just to help you guys out. Once again, I mean, we do got another system that we're watching here in the Southern Gulf. Just a bunch of convection going on. Likely isn't going to be much, honestly. It doesn't have much time. It's going to go into those waters, which, yeah, are pretty warm. There's a little bit of chance of slow development. Could get maybe a short-lived depression out of it. We'll have to see. But right now the odds are pretty darn low. I mean, 20% chance overall formation. It's not very likely. It's pretty unlikely. But, I mean, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But, yeah, this one doesn't really seem to be much of a problem. But, in terms of Erin here, we'll definitely keep an eye on it. So we're going to go over the cone one more time, and then I'm going to call the stream here. So, once again, the current position of which the storm is, it's well west of the Cabo Verde, well east of the Antilles here. Currently we are clocking in at 45 mile per hour sustained winds, central pressure down to 1,004 millibars, and is moving to the west at 17 miles an hour. Now, in yesterday evening's update, the storm was moving west at moving west at 21 miles an hour, my bad. Now it's moving west at 17, so it has slowed down quite a bit, quite a few miles an hour here, so it is slowing down a bit. Looking at it visually, on the infrared view, you can see that we are starting to get a lot more convection with it. It was looking pretty bare yesterday at this time because it was interacting with a little bit of drier air and, of course, cooler waters out there, so that was kind of getting into the storm, but it looks like it's starting to pick back up again. And basically, the cone has it, and, a lot of the models has it just where over the next few days, some gradual strengthening is possible, some slow strengthening to it. Can't be ruled out. A little bit of strengthening is definitely possible. Now, we are expected to transition from tropical storm into hurricane here. This will be right around the 15th. This is a morning of the 15th, so that would be on Friday. So Friday is the day that we do need to keep it out there for it. And, this is when we are likely going to see the transition from tropical storm into hurricane here. And from that point forward, that's where we really could start to see some quick development in the system as it does roll into even warmer waters, as it does also have a pretty good environment, atmospheric environment here, plentiful amount of moisture. Of course, we do have, some limitations, not much wind shear going on, which is definitely good. And then once we approach our way into the weekend here, for Sunday, once we get north of like Puerto Rico and stuff, at that point, this is where it could become major. We could have a major hurricane on our hands. Category 3 or greater is considered quote unquote major, in which, the Hurricane Center does have it as a Cat 3 here on Sunday, which we do have winds upwards of 115 miles an hour sustained, and gusts up to right around 140. And of course, we are still going to see some strengthening after that. These waters out here, by the time that system rolls through, they're going to be very, very conducive for rapid strengthening. So we'll have to see. It's definitely going to be going on a strengthening kick once it approaches these waters out here. Now, in terms of, the last guidance here, this is for the morning of Monday. You can see Monday still has a Cat 3, winds sustained right around 120 miles an hour or so, and we could see some gusts up to 150 miles per hour. So definitely is going to be pretty strong at that point. But the good news is that at that point in time, it is not really anywhere near any area of land. I mean, obviously we have the Virgin Islands, we have like Puerto Rico, some of those islands out there. Just to the south of the system here, which, there could be some indirect impacts here. Actually, before I leave, I do want to show you this real quickly. So looking at the models again here, specifically we'll look at the GFS for a second. Looking at the wave, that's wave period. We'll go to wave height here. So you can actually see that there is going to be potential that we could definitely get some strong waves, some pretty high waves. I mean, this is in feet here. You can see, upwards of maybe 10 foot or so across some of those islands could be absolutely possible. It depends on where this thing goes. I mean, here's Bermuda. This in particular run has Bermuda getting hit, but it's still not certain. Bermuda could definitely get some pretty high-end waves here with this system. And you can see some of those waves, even reaching a lot of the U.S. East Coast here, which could definitely throw a concern for like rip currents and all kinds of fun stuff like that we're going to have to look out there for. But that's pretty much it, my friends. Like I said, we'll keep you guys updated. We'll go live again tonight. Once again, probably between 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern time, by the way. So that would be probably between 7 and 9 p.m. Central. So we'll make sure to keep you guys updated with everything. But just want to say thank you all for joining. I really, really appreciate y'all. Thanks for hanging out with us. If you're new to the channel, consider hitting that subscribe button. It'd be greatly appreciated. Leave a like if you guys haven't already. I would also be greatly appreciated. And if you guys really could, that'd be greatly appreciated as well if you guys could help share this channel to your friends, your family, your coworkers, your neighbors, whatever, just to make sure that they're staying weather aware as well. And like I said, we'll make sure to keep you guys the honest, the truthful information, and we'll be able to let you guys know what's really going on out there, besides all the hype that you guys see. There's a lot of hype out there. And like I said, this is where you're at now is a real channel that will keep you guys up to date with everything and not hype anything. So, all right, everybody. Well, I appreciate it. You guys have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. Once again, we'll catch y'all later on tonight, right around 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern. So turn on those notifications. That way you guys do get notified. But all right, everybody. Well, thank you all for joining. Y'all have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out, my friends. See ya later on.